At 6, the first flight taking asylum seekers to Rwanda is due to leave the UK in the next few hours. This is the plane expected to fly them out of a military base in Wiltshire, but only a handful may be on board.
We think it's a sensible partnership we set up with Rwanda. Yes, it may take a while to get working properly, but it doesn't mean we're not going to keep going.
Today, more than 300 people arrived in Dover after they managed to cross the channel illegally in small boats. Will the flights to Rwanda deter people from attempting the dangerous crossing? Also on the programme. Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon kicks off a new campaign for another vote on Scottish independence. A memorial service at Westminster Abbey for the 72 people who died in the Grenfell Tower disaster 5 years ago today. The Yorkshire seaside town of Whitby votes to restrict the number of second homes for holidaymakers.
And he hits it hard. He hits it to the cover point boundary.
And a thrilling win for England as they beat New Zealand by 5 wickets to take the Test series.
Coming up in Sports Day later in the hour on BBC News, we'll have the latest from the Nations League. 3 home nations playing, including Scotland, who are facing Armenia in Yerevan.
Good evening and welcome to the BBC News at 6 from our new studio at Broadcasting House. A flight to Rwanda carrying just a handful of asylum seekers is due to leave the UK tonight after campaigners and charities failed in their bid to block it. It was meant to be taking more than 100 people, but legal challenges mean there will be no more than 7 on board, among them Iraqi Kurds and Iranians. The government insists the flights are necessary to deter people trafficking gangs helping thousands cross the channel, but Church of England leaders have called it immoral. Here's our home editor, Mark Easton. The flights to Rwanda are meant to act as a deterrent to those trying to cross the channel in boats. But today, at least 300 more people made that journey. Those are just some of them. Simon Jones reports from Dover. Well, the numbers crossing the channel have more than trebled in the past 2 years. Close to 29,000 asylum seekers reached these shores by boat last year alone. And just over 15,000 people were offered asylum here last year. Almost 4 times that number applied, though. In a moment, we'll talk to our political editor, Chris Mason, who's at Westminster. But first, our senior Africa correspondent, Anne Soy, is in the Rwandan capital, Kigali. And the authorities have been talking about all this today. What have they been saying? Scotland's First Minister has launched a fresh push for Scottish independence, insisting there is a strong and compelling case for Scotland to leave the UK. Nicola Sturgeon said she believed the Scottish Parliament had a mandate for a referendum and urged Westminster to respect democracy. Downing Street says now is not the time for another poll, and people across Scotland want to see both governments working together. Our Scotland editor, James Cook, reports. James Cook, thank you. The time is 6:15, our top story this evening. The first flight taking asylum seekers to Rwanda is due to leave the UK in the next few hours. And coming up, as much of Europe swelters, weather warnings for England and Wales with temperatures set to soar this week.
Coming up in Sports Day in the next 15 minutes on the BBC News channel. She was injured at last year's Wimbledon and has had 12 months out. But Serena Williams will make her singles return at this year's championships.
Now, this is the Yorkshire seaside town of Whitby. With its beautiful coastline and beaches, it's a really popular place for holidays. So popular, in fact, that about 1 in 5 properties here is now second home or a holiday let. Local residents have had enough. They've voted to stop new homes being snapped up for holidaymakers. The vote's not legally binding, but residents hope it will make a difference, as Danny Savage has been finding out. There are 1.3 million job vacancies in the UK now, a new record high. The rise is mainly down to older workers who've chosen to retire early during the pandemic. The Chancellor said the UK's jobs market remains robust, but Labour has accused the government of utter complacency about the high number of people choosing not to work. Today's new figures also show how pay rises are falling behind soaring inflation. Well, our economics editor Faisal Islam is here to talk us through the figures.
Yeah, well, Sophie, it's a bit of a mixed picture. The good news is that unemployment is close to historic lows, reflecting the success of pandemic support measures at 3.8%, one of the lowest levels in half a century. But the smallest signs that it's starting to tick back up again in the very latest data. However, take a look at this. Vacancies in the economy hit another record, this time above 1.3 million, more than the population of Birmingham, with hundreds of thousands of missing workers, reflecting those retiring during the pandemic, long-term ill, and fewer European workers post-Brexit under new immigration rules. Now, this is the consequence of a rebound from the pandemic. The impact of all that is becoming material, contributing to visible problems at our airports, in NHS hospital waiting rooms and in our cleaning companies too.
The airline industry and the government must both shoulder the responsibility for the recent chaos seen at airports. That's what MPs have been told today. The head of the consumer group Which told a Commons committee that staff shortages had been underestimated, leading to thousands of flight cancellations and long queues at airports. Our transport correspondent Katie Austin can explain more. Katie.
Yes, Sophie, while most people have got away without major problems, you'll probably have seen pictures of long queues at some airports since before Easter and heard about flight cancellations. So far in June, more than 900 flights leaving the UK have been cancelled, most of them in advance, and EasyJet has had the highest number. There have been various reasons for disruption, and problems are happening elsewhere in Europe too, but aviation staff shortages are a big underlying factor. The industry shed many jobs during the pandemic, including 30,000 at airlines. Some firms have now struggled to hire enough new recruits in time for the rising demand. It's not all about cabin crew. Ground workers like baggage handlers are in short supply, and that was given as a reason for the tour operator TUI cancelling dozens of flights from Manchester this month. Here's what they said today.
And you can see a special programme called Grenfell Has Anything Changed? It's available now on the BBC iPlayer and at bbc.co.uk/iPlayer or via the iPlayer app on your smart device. It's not often that England cricket captain Ben Stokes is outshone, but today, on the final day of the second test against New Zealand, Johnny Bairstow did just that, hitting a sparkling century to seal an unlikely victory at Trent Bridge. Andy Swiss has been watching all the action. Time for a look at the weather now. Matt Taylor is here, and it is going to get hot, hot, hot this week, isn't it, for a lot of people?
But not for everyone. It's a bit of an uneven weather story this week, Sophie. Yes, today we've had skies like this one, captured by one of the weather watchers in Powys, across much of England and Wales. It's been a different story, though, in Scotland and Northern Ireland. Skies much similar to these in the Highlands. And that contrast is going to continue through the rest of this week, with cloud and some rain at times for Scotland and Northern Ireland, whereas England and Wales, with the sunshine, comes increasing heat and increasing humidity. So why? It's this air of high pressure here to the south and east. As that works its way eastwards, we're going to draw up the air from Spain and France, whereas to Scotland and Northern Ireland, closer to areas of low pressure, rain will swing through, as it will do at times tonight. Will be on and off. It won't be there all night long. Clear skies for England and Wales. Good view of the supermoon, of course, which peaked today. But here, the coolest of the conditions. Maybe not quite as chilly as last night, but temperatures in single figures to start Wednesday. For Wednesday, though, England and Wales, largely sunny start. Bit of low cloud drifting around the east coast later on. An isolated shower. But for Scotland and Northern Ireland, like today, plenty of cloud. Best of the brighter breaks to the south and the east. Further rain at times in the Highlands, down into Northern Ireland. Probably a few more showers here than we saw through today. Temperatures generally in the mid to high teens, but look, we're starting to build that heat towards the south and east. 27 the high in London, and pollen levels shooting up for all, including Scotland and Northern Ireland. Moderate to high levels here. Then into Thursday, it's a case of spot the difference. More showers for Northern Ireland and parts of Western Scotland. Maybe some longer spells of rain. Fair bit of hazy sunshine for England and Wales. Temperatures widely into the mid-20s. But the nights are going to get in hotter and more humid as well. So rather uncomfortable start to Friday. A day of heavier rain across Scotland and Northern Ireland. But for England and Wales, in the sunshine, we'll see temperatures for some eastern areas around 30 to 33 degrees. A very hot day indeed.
Wow, Matt. Thank you very much. I'm going to head over here now because that is it from the BBC News at 6 on Tuesday, the 14th of June. You can, of course, keep up to date with all the latest developments on the BBC website. From the 6 team, it is goodbye, but the news continues right here on BBC One because it's now time to join our colleagues across the nations and regions for the news where you are. Goodbye.